Alright everybody, today I'm going to show you guys how you can make some bouncy guitar beats all from scratch in FL Studio. Make sure you guys watch the whole video the entire way through because I'm going to break down everything from the melody to the drums in a step-by-step process. And I'm also going to show you guys some super cool tricks at the end of the video so you can really get those bouncy drums that we're going for. So let's not waste any more time, let's just jump right in. Alright, so we are now here in FL Studio 21 as you guys can see. Now first things first, we obviously need to pick a guitar since we are going for a bouncy guitar beat. And I have already opened up Atmosphere. As most of you guys know, my favorite guitar VST is going to be the Nylon Sky guitar. I'm just going to be using the clean preset right there, and then we can start laying down our guitar pattern. But before we do that, I'm just going to switch the BPM down a little bit. So I'm going to go for 115 in this case. From here, we can just open up the piano roll and start laying down our pattern. Now in this case, I will be working in the E minor scale. It's not really that important, but if you want to follow along, you can pick the same exact key as well. So since we are working in the E minor scale, I'm going to start off by putting a note on the E5 right here. But we are going to be making our pattern a little bit differently. So what we would usually do is just make a chord. So skip this one and put a note right here and kind of have this as our base start. But like I said, we are going to do it a little bit differently in this case. So let's actually delete these top two notes and do the same thing just in the opposite direction. So instead of doing it above the E, we're actually going to do the same thing but below the E5 right there. So let's just skip this one and put a note right there. Again, skip the next highlighted note and put a note below this one. So this is kind of going to be our main chord for the first bar right there. And since we are using a guitar instrument, we obviously want to strum this out a little bit. So I'm just going to move each note 2 steps to the side, and this is kind of going to be our chord. So that sounds super smooth as always. Now from here, I want to keep this very simple for you guys so you guys can really understand what I'm doing. So before I start adding a lot of different notes and complicating this stuff, we actually want to keep stuff a little bit more simple to start off with so you guys can learn something out of this as well. So let's head over to the slice tool and let's just chop up some of the notes we are already using. We don't need to overcomplicate by adding a lot of different notes just yet. We can do that a little bit later, but firstly, let's just chop them up. So this is going to be the middle of the first bar. Now I actually want to slice this up a little bit before the middle. So let's just do 2 steps to the left. And then for this one, we can actually just do 2 steps to the right. And from here, let's again use some of the notes that we're already using. So since this is going to be our root note, I'm actually just going to copy this up 1 octave as well. And I want to follow the strumming pattern that we are using. So 2 steps to the right. Again, let's just do 2 steps to the right there. Now you guys might see that these 2 notes actually line up right above each other. And I've done this on purpose because we want to do a little bit of a cool trick, which is just to offset some of the notes a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just highlight this note, hold Alt on my keyboard and move it slightly off grid so these 2 notes don't line up exactly above each other. It's going to give you a little bit more of a realistic and natural type of sound out of your guitar sample. Now very importantly, when you are doing this type of trick, you actually want to make sure to go down to the velocity and just make sure to lower the velocity a little bit down on the bottom note you have. And we can actually also lower the velocity on some of the other notes that we already have, so we can kind of create a more of a smoother feel to the whole sample. So now we have this for the first bar. Sounding super smooth, super natural, exactly what we want, but it still needs a little bit more movement to create that some sort of bounce on the melody as well. So to do that, now is the time that we add a lot more different notes. So what I'm going to do from here is just start looking at the notes that we aren't already using. So since we have already chopped up some of the notes that we have, I'm just going to look at these 2 notes, this note, as well as some of the bottom notes right here. So the first thing I see is that when we were talking about chopping up in the middle of the bar, we don't actually have a note hitting at the middle. So I kind of want to follow this strumming pattern that we have 2 steps to the right from the start, and that means that we should have a note which should hit in the middle right there. So what I'm actually going to do is just add a D note which we can have on the bottom down here, but I'm going to go down and lower the velocity a little bit since I don't want it to be too deep. And from here I'm just going to add 1 more note as well as do a little bit of the same trick that we did right here. So let's kind of add maybe a strum right there. So again, I'm just going to highlight this, move it slightly off grid and go down and lower the velocity on the bottom one. Alright, great. So our main first bar is sounding super smooth. Now, by the way, this beat is going to be inspired from a Swedish song. So if you guys know which one it is, make sure to leave it down in the comments below. But since we have our first pattern laid down, it's time that we actually start working on the second bar. So what I'm going to do from here is just copy this over, which is kind of our root note of the first bar. But this time I'm just going to pitch it down by 5 semitones. So it's going to land on the E E4 right there. Coming back to the note of our actual key, right? Since we're working in the E minor scale, we're gonna have this land on the E for the second bar. And from here, kind of do the same thing that we did right here. Let's just make a chord and we can do the same strumming pattern, so moving it 2 steps to the side. Now this note is a little bit low, so what I'm actually going to do is pitch it up by 1 octave, so we are inverting it, and then we're going to move it a little bit more to the side. Since I actually want to keep this E note consistent, it's sounding super smooth. Since we are using it down here on the E4, we can actually just copy it over on the E5 as well. When you're keeping some of the notes consistent throughout the whole guitar sample, it's really going to give you that wavy type of feel. I feel like this note is a little bit too low again, so let's actually just pitch this back up to the G so we can keep that consistent as well. And from here, we are kind of doing the same exact thing that we did on the first bar, so we can just start adding some more filler notes and pretty much take it from there. So as you guys can see with those small filler notes, our second bar looks like this, and I think this is just going to be the main thing, so let's just copy this over for the whole 8 bars and let's take a listen. So it's sounding super smooth. All we need is just to enhance the sound a little bit by adding some more effects to this, and it's going to be perfect. Right, so the first effect is obviously going to be a Rome reverb. From here I'm also adding the 103 preset using RC20, really giving us that wavy vintage type of sound to the guitar, and this fits perfectly for the pattern. Next I'm just widening the sound a little bit. Not really too much going on here. All we need to do now is just clean it up with the EQ. Yeah, now we have a super clean guitar sound. You can see that you don't really need to do it too much with the effects, just clean up the sound a little bit and add those essentials. That's gonna sound smooth. Right, the next thing I'm gonna do now for the melody is just open up Mellotron 5, and I did find this faded piano preset right here. So what I think I'm gonna do with this one is actually just copy the same exact layer from my main guitar and kind of just use this as a little bit of a background layer with some more effects so we can differentiate it from the sound. I'm just gonna copy the whole thing and go over to the Mellotron 5 and paste it in. Now if you start playing it, you guys can kind of hear it is in the background. So we're going to keep it at this key as well, but we definitely need to add some more effects to it. So I'm going to head over to the mixer and open up Portal. If you guys have my Mirage multi-kit, I have this Portal bank from the Mirage bank. I'm just going to use this Blaze preset. You can really hear how it adds that character to the sound. So this is super key right here. I highly recommend at least checking this bank out. It's super sauce. With this we're also going to open up RC20 using the 92 Transition 1 preset, just to really get that spacious sound. That's pretty much it. Let's just lower the volume a bit and it's perfect. Right, the next thing I'm going to do for the sample is going to splice. I did find this vocal right here. As you guys can hear, it is pretty much a one-shot type of vocal. So we're just going to put this down underneath the layer and adds a little bit of delay as well. So I did put it in right here and in key. Like I said, I wanted to add a little bit delay. So what I did was I just opened up the effect track using the Echo Boy. And if you go to the Dark Angel Box preset in the vocal section, you can actually adjust the echo time. So I'm going to put it to half a note right there. And this is kind of going to make sure that our vocal plays several times throughout the whole thing. With this, I'm also going to add a pancake too, so we can pan the vocal from left to right. This is super clutch if you are using that delay that I talked about. So now with the guitar, the vocal sounds like this. Yeah, now we just need a smooth counter melody on top, and it's pretty much going to be it for the melody. Like I said, it's going to be a wavy sound, and then we can really create that balance with the drums later on. Right, so for the counter melody, again, I want to keep it simple. Like I said, we're going to do some bouncy drums later on, so we don't want the counter melody to overpower that either. In this case, I just went into Arcade on the grind preset right there, and I literally just laid down this super smooth loop. fills it out perfectly for that section right there. Like you guys know, I also have a few textures in the Mirage multi-kit, so I'm just going to drag in a random one from there, and that's pretty much going to be it for the sample. Just turning down the volume a bit on that texture, and there we have it. Now let's add those bouncy drums, and we're going to kill this beat. Right, so from here we are going to go for a little bit of a different bounce. This is not going to be your standard trap type of bounce or anything like that. We're going to have more swing to this so we can really get that bounce out of those drums. So what I am really looking for in this one is actually going to be a lot of perks, different snares, as well as some rims. And if you guys know, I have a lot of different snares, rims, and perks in the motion bundle kit over here to the left. So I'm obviously going to be using this kit right here for the drums. So if you guys like any of the drum sounds you hear in this video, make sure to check out the kit. It is on my website, which is BBMarko.com, or I will just leave it down in the first link down below. So like I said, make sure to check it out. You can literally just copy paste the exact drum sounds that I'm using, so you can always get a clean sound. But with that being said, let's just go over to the snares first, and we're going to start by putting down a cool little snare. Right, so the snare I'm going to be using is this one. I think this one has a cool little African type of vibe to it, so that's what we're going to go for. Those type of sounds work perfectly when you're going for this type of bounce, although there is a lot of sound at the end, so I think I'm just going to turn the out knob up a little bit, and there we kind of have the perfect sound. Now for the drum bounce on this one, we're going to do something like this. Just copy that over. Really getting that bounce going for these snares right here. Now to make this a little bit more realistic as well, just go in and adjust a little bit of the velocity on some of these. Yeah, so now we have the perfect bounce for this. This is so wavy. Right, so you guys might have seen that I've left out this snare, which I actually have on this section. This is because I want to go over to the rims and add a little bit of a rim layer on top of that instead. Let's go in and add this rim right here. So the rim layer goes right there. Really adds to the bounce. Copy it over. Adding another rim underneath that yet again, just to emphasize it so it's a bit different. That's perfect. Alright, from here we need to add that kick. This is really going to help out with the whole bounce. And to be fair, the kick is actually very simple. So let's just drag in a pretty punchy one. And from here, all you have to do is just hit fill each 4 steps. So now we're really starting to get that punch. Bouncy, bro. Right, so the next thing to add a little bit more sauce to the bounce, just gonna head over here and drag in this hi-hat. Now you don't want to put down your usual 2-step hi-hat pattern or something crazy like that. We're just gonna do these in small increments here and there, just to kind of fill out the bounce a bit. So what I mean by that is just maybe adding 2 hi-hat hits right there and kind of keeping that consistent. You can really hear how that kind of fills it out just a tiny bit. Adding it right here. Right, the last thing we need now to finish off the whole beat is obviously just a bass, so we can really fill out that low end. Now in this case, luckily I do have the perfect bass for this type of beat, since I have a one-shot kit in the motion bundle kit as well. Like I said, you guys have literally several different kits all in one bundle, so it's all there for you. But I'm gonna go over to the bass section and drag in this bandit bass right here. As you guys can hear, it really has that bouncy and punchy type of sound. So let's just drag this in. And I also have a super cool trick to really not have to worry too much about the bass pattern. Obviously, you can put down the bass pattern as you want, but in this case, what we firstly want to do is just make sure to turn off loop points and also just adjust this so you have full control over your bass. Now with the bass, it's kind of going to follow a little bit similar pattern to the snares that we were using. So we're going to have something like this. I'm just going to copy that over and put it on the root note for the second bar, which was E. Copy that over again. Now you can test out a cool little trick that we can add to this bass. And the trick is to actually just open up Kickstart 2. If you have this one, you can just go over to this last preset right here. As you can see, this kind of has a little bit of a side chaining effect to it already. So you can just mess around with the mix. Let's put it to 63%. Make sure to put it on, and then let's take a listen to how it already creates that side chain. So you don't really have to worry too much about the pattern. Right, so with the beat finished, I'm quickly just going to arrange the whole thing, and then we'll take a final listen. Alright, so here we have the full beat. A little bit of a chill intro.
Shut up, Marko.
With the counter melody, and the vocals come in right here. There we have the bass as well. We'll come into the main part. Here we have all the elements playing, really getting that bouncy guitar vibe right here. The small little hi-hats add a lot of character as well. A little bit of a verse section right here. Just the guitar and a few drums. Kick comes in right here. Dude, this is so bouncy. Main part of the verse. And then we go into a bridge. Just a low filter right there, drowns out the sound a bit. And then from here we go back into the hook.